The publisher.
But I do sit quietly a lot, just naturally. I don't see any difference between what would be called meditation and what's happening right now. I mean, obviously, we're talking, but...
Had you sat quietly in the same way before you meditated in the Zen tradition?
Before I ever started meditating? Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think as a child, I was naturally really, I was into the visual arts, I did painting, and I was into nature, and I think a lot of artists have a similar kind of interest in just... I had a teacher, actually, in high school. He was a film teacher, and the first class that we had, he had us all look at our thumbs, and he said, okay, just sit there and look at your thumbs, and we're like doing that, and when 5 minutes went by, and maybe 10 minutes, I don't know, and finally he said, how many of you are bored? And a lot of us raised our hands, and he said, well, if you're really looking, you wouldn't be bored, because there's an infinite universe there. And he would give us these homework assignments that were like to go home and look at one tiny part of the bark of a tree or something for like an hour, or just lay on the living room floor and look at the shadows on the ceiling for an hour or something, and which is kind of what kids do naturally, and what artists do naturally, and what our society kind of trains out of us, because of course you're supposed to be constantly busy and productive and doing something useful and busy and productive, and you're certainly not supposed to be laying on your living room floor watching shadows.
No, it sounds like children and it's a certain way, kind of altered state.
It's actually, I would say, it's the natural state, state. And our culture, I mean, to a certain extent, as animals, to survive, we have to do food gathering and all that. I mean, you have to do something. But our society has carried it to an unbelievable extreme of, hysterical busyness. And the worst thing you can do is to do nothing. I mean, it's un-American, it's horrible.
What is the saying? Don't just stand there, do nothing?
Yeah,
or don't just
it's some kind of Zen.
Don't just
saying.
Do something.
Yeah, don't just do something, do nothing. Just sit there or something like that. It's a play on that. Yeah.
You talk a lot about silence in these books. Was that a big discovery?
Well, I was an only child. I've always enjoyed solitude and silence, and I've always had a feel for it. But I do remember my first Zen sesshin, which was 7 days in silence, and it was just to sit there and just listen to rain. I just remember that as being this wonderful moment of to listen to rain, the sounds of rain, it's miraculous, it's wonderful. And there's so much that's every moment is miraculous, wonderful.
It's interesting, if you talk to like hospice workers who've asked people who know that they're about to die, what's been important to them? Things like that, listening to the rain, or a certain meal that they had, not because the food was special, but because of their attitude.
And that's what life really is. It's these ordinary moments, like right now. And it's like like wow. That's the wow. It's these ordinary moments. That's what life is these ordinary moments. And then, but in the story, we've got this whole story about there's me, and I'm on this journey, and I have to get somewhere, and I have to accomplish something, and I have to save the world, and the world has to get somewhere, and we're evolving, and we have to do it right. And one of the things my mother said in the last year of her life, that she kept saying over and over, it's so wonderful to realize that nothing really matters. And she said it like something had really dropped away, some burden. And she was somebody who cared deeply about the world. She did a lot of stuff, against racism, and over the years, all kinds of, she was somebody who was involved and engaged. So she didn't mean it in a heartless way or a nihilistic way or anything, but there was just a sense of that she really got that that ultimately nothing really mattered.
What was her feeling at that time?
It just felt very light, very open, you know, very, because that is a paradox. I mean, on the one hand, if you just in some callous way say, well, nothing really matters, it's all one.
Yeah.
I mean, that just kind of, well, it's false, I think.
Oh.
Because it does matter that children are being bombed and so on and so on. But you know, at the same time, it doesn't matter in the sense that nothing is really ever born or destroyed. It's both at the same time. So there's both a real caring and a realization
and
that
what she said, yeah.
that there's nowhere to go.
Yeah. Now, you were politically active. In the book, you give a wonderful description of some of this. Has that been superseded by what you've been talking about, or do you have a kind of a double vision?
I would say, in a practical way, it's been superseded in that my life is now much more focused on the one than the other, but I still care deeply about the world.
Joan, thank you very much for coming in and talking about this somewhat paradoxical and tricky and ultimately very simple subject.
Well, thanks, Craig. It's been fun being here.